notacon.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you all for coming to the talk. This is Def Jam to Cutlass 1 year after. My name is Todd McDermid. This is Jack Lloyd, and this is Kathy Wang. John Schweitzer is also one of the principal members of the project, but sadly he is in Florida this week and cannot make it. Cutlass is something that actually started out last year at Notacon. It was founded kind of as a community project. Some jump roping girls kind of tied us into doing something, and the idea was that at the time we were calling it distributed encrypted file journaling and messaging, and we got together a bunch of people at the con and we talked about the design, and it was more of a freewheeling kind of oh, let's just sit together and talk about what this project needs and what it doesn't need. And we can go in that direction this year. We have a full hour's worth of prepared material, but if you guys are interested at any point in going off on some tangent, really the whole point of this talk, whoops, no, okay. So we'll get to that in a bit. But the idea is that we're looking for help. And so if you guys are interested in helping out with the project, we would love to have you, and we can make progress with it. We're going to show you what we've done. But as we talked about last year, the primary goals behind Cutlass was it's an encrypted voice over IP, file sharing, and text messaging application. The idea is that those are the core things besides web surfing that people do on their day-to-day lives. I've got a bunch of friends that I hang out on the net with, and we talk to each other, we send files back and forth, and currently it's pretty much all going over in the clear. And the idea is they're not tinfoil hat people, but I am a tinfoil hat person, and I really would like to bring the rest of the populace inside the encrypted envelope, so to speak. Now, we need it to be easy to use because my friends are lazy and they're not going to put up with any kind of annoying crap in order to use encryption. It pretty much has to be seamless and not actually there. And it's also got to run on Windows. Currently, it runs only on Linux, but it's been designed to be portable. We actually have run the library, and it's on Solaris. It's on a few other platforms. We're not using any funky Linux-only mechanisms within it, so hopefully it should be pretty easy to port. It's got to be secure by default. There should not be an option to make it easier to turn the encryption off. It ought to, if it's not working with the encryption on, it's not working. SSH is actually the model that we're shooting for. SSH has more or less replaced Telnet in most shops today because it's really easy to use. It's not that much more difficult to use than Telnet, and you don't even need to know much about the encryption that's happening behind the scenes. Because we are a small project, we're not already the size of a Kazaa or a Nutella, we don't want it to be a valueless product unless there's already a million other people using the product. We want it to be useful by a small set of people, so that you can do it. If it's only just you and your 5 buddies, it's still useful to use. While I want it to be easy to use for the general populace, that means that some of the more tinfoil hat things, key verification, the web of trust that GPG has, for example, isn't going to be on by default, where you have to sit there and pay a lot of attention to who your keying material has come on. But I want it to be there so that if you do care about that kind of thing, that it is easy to check and you can go back and make it more secure without too much difficulty. And I also wanted to avoid the dependence on central servers. If you look at Skype, for example, there's one central logon server. After you've authenticated, it all goes out to various subnodes, and all your traffic gets routed around via those subnodes. But you do have that one central server initially. That's going to lead to some interesting things with CALIA, for example. There's going to be some legal impacts of that. If you've got a central server that people can target, then it may become your responsibility to retain information about transactions that are going on. And I wanted to avoid that. It is not a strong anonymity system. It is not trying to go out and eat the lunch of Tor, for example. If you have a strong anonymity system, that usually has a huge usability impact in my experience. And I couldn't figure out any ways to design around that per se. So where anonymity is in conflict with usability, usability wins. We also didn't restrict ourselves to using standard protocols that are already out there. So, for example, we're not using RTP for our voice. We're not using TCP for our file transfer. That has had an impact over the past year because we've had to replicate some functionality. And I've had second thoughts at times, but that was the decision we've made. We forged ahead with it. It's pretty much working at this point. And we wanted it to be useful without a complete meshing of all the nodes. We didn't need there to be one global namespace. So what we've done to date is we've got audio working. We've got key exchange. All the crypto stuff is working. We've got a decent housekeeping system that will detect if connections are up live or not, and clean up after itself without memory leaking and all that fun stuff. It's got a text messaging system. It's a file transfer system. We've got support for directories in the library, but we don't actually have it integrated into the UI yet. And that's going to be a really key step. So that when you come online, right now you need to know the host that your friend is at, and you need to try and connect there and see if he's up or not. That's obviously not going to scale. It's a test framework at this point. We're debugging the code. The directory server support is in there. It's not activated yet. It will be shortly. So we're going to demo this now to show you what we've got. Jack, do you want to take it, or? Go ahead. And by default, we have a passphrase protecting your private key. And I've already talked to Kathy today, so I've already got her information in here. And I've increased the font size. Normally under default font sizes it looks sane, and we need to clean up the GTK a little bit. But this is it, effectively. You can add contacts, you can edit contacts, you can remove contacts. I've already got a contact, so I'll just connect to Kathy. And at this point, we've got a text chat window. And Kathy wants to do an audio chat with me already. And so Kathy is actually using a different client. Than we are. And we're into the audio loop. But we can chat back and forth at this point. Via audio. And I'm going to stop that because it works. You've seen it works, and that's going to get really annoying if it just continues on that audio loop. But Kathy said hell to me. Hiya. And we can have this text chat. I can send her files if I like. We've got the pull file requirement, and I apologize. We've got divvied up into UI components and the fundamental behind-the-scene library, and the GUI is still a little bit unstable. I do want to show you that it does actually work behind the scenes. So I'm going to start up Text Cutlass real quick. Text Cutlass. Oh, you don't have file transfer enabled, do you?
Well, I just transferred a file earlier.
You sent it to me, but you're not receiving.
Okay.
Text Cutlass by default will not receive files. You need to include the -f flag. So, what's a good file to send you? All right. Yeah, lost the buffer.
So would you like me to send you a file?
No, oh yeah, actually you do need to send me a file because I'm not receiving at this point, or you're not receiving. Oh, we need to connect.
Oh, you
What?
disconnected?
Yeah, I did. 92.168.69.118. Okay, so send me a file.
I just did.
No, you weren't.
Let's
We weren't
see it
connected
again.
yet. Okay, so I got a file. It comes, it asks me what I want to save it as. And lo and behold, it shows up. So that's file transfer. We've got it working in the library. The GUI still needs a little hammering out.
What we've done in the past with this particular demo. What we've done in the past with this particular demo is that I usually sit in the NOC, and you know, that way I'm remotely connected to this host, and I can talk through audio, and I can send files, and you know, that kind of stuff. It's really pretty neat. So today we were having a little trouble setting things up, so that's why I'm sitting here instead of in the next room. But just imagine that I'm over there.
So I'm glad you did show up. And we do need help, and we don't need just help in coding, because we've got some good coders on the team. If you do want to code, we've definitely got areas that need help coding, and it's been so much a, you know, grab what you find interesting kind of project, and then, you know, people will pick up the pieces that aren't interesting and clean them up later. But if you've got testing, if you've got testing abilities, if you want to find bugs for us, if you've got design suggestions for the GUI, usability, you know, things like that, we would love to hear from you, because ultimately we want this software to be usable by the vast audience of the world at large, but you guys, the core security community, we expect will probably be the evangelists, because most people, if they look at this versus TeamSpeak or this versus Skype, they're not going to care as much about the security. So it's probably going to grow from within you, and so we would like to target you guys initially. So the purpose of this presentation is not just to demo the software, because we're already done with that, but we're going to try and give you information that would be useful if you would like to help out with the project. We're going to cover the protocol, how that works, how the cryptographic structure works, the internals of the program, the API, because as I've mentioned, it's a library, and then we've got 2 clients currently that are written to that, GTK Cutlass and Text Cutlass. If someone else would like to write a different client, that would be great. We've got a test suite that we currently run that tests the library and what the documentation is. We've been trying to document this project so that anyone could step in, download the tarball, and be helpful in a fairly short amount of time. So to cover the basics of the protocol, it's UDP based, and that's because we've got that audio component in it. And if we go TCP based, you end up, of course, obviously with the problem of you lose a packet and then you've got latency for the rest of whenever. 2 + 2, 4, you know, the answer comes back. And so with UDP, it's easy to drop packets on the floor. Now, why didn't we go with UDP for voice and TCP for other things? Partially because it's easier to punch through firewalls that way. We can replicate TCP functionality within UDP, and we'll talk about how we do that in a little bit. And partially to help defeat traffic analysis measures. You know, once we get this to where we want it to be, we would like it so that you can add in chaffing packets and the like, so that you don't necessarily will be able to tell if a person is chatting over audio or sending a file. Are you guys familiar with Tarzan? It's an interesting project. It's a peer-to-peer. It's an anonymity network. But one of the ideas they've got is they've got the idea of constant data streams, and it's constant streams of nothing going over. And when you want to actually send data, you remove some of the nothing and you add in the data. But no matter whether you're sending or not, the data stream looks consistent all the way. There have been other people that have implemented it. Tarzan was the first time I'd heard of that. It's not in the Cutlass protocol right now. If you use the library, you will be able to do traffic analysis on it, but the protocol supports that. So that's where we're driving that eventually. That's what we mean when we say extendable and paranoia. We can do transfers of messages to individuals. We can do it to groups, and we run everything over this UDP protocol. This is the core of it. It's because it's per packet, we can't do some kind of chain block cipher stream. We're actually doing something that's closer to WEP, but we tried not to screw it up. So we've got this nonce up here, and currently the default nonce size is 16.